Okay, so that's pretty much the scenario, and I hope it's been helpful. By the way, if you do find it helpful, I'll mention that the first part of the scenario was adapted from our upcoming course, Developing Requirements. It should be out in just a few weeks. I'll encourage you to check it out. But let's take a minute to look at what we've reviewed. In the first section of the scenario, we covered the gathering of requirements. You got to see how Doug interacted with a couple stakeholders using fairly realistic interactions. We also saw how the input from those stakeholders is incorporated into our documentation. But we didn't just copy and paste our notes, we looked at each input item and analyzed it. We modeled the requirements in a few ways to make sure we understood the problem and shaped our definition of the future solution. And then finally, we walked through our document just like we would with our real life stakeholders. Some things I did well, some not so well, and I'll want to incorporate our critique into how I do my walkthroughs in the future. Well, this is great, and I hope it was certainly helpful, but nothing is as real as the real world. So let's talk about a few things you can expect to be different from our scenario. First, in this scenario, you saw a little bit of the complexity that's involved in our organizations, but in the real world, there's a lot more. Your analysis skills will help you to manage this, especially your newly acquired knowledge of decomposition. Also, unfortunately, not everyone will appreciate your work. Everyone was nice and pleasant to Doug, but that won't always be the case. Best advice is to be professional, do the best you can, and keep your focus on the work. And finally, things will change. Stakeholders will enter and exit your organization and your project. The strategy and goals of your organization will evolve, and so on. My best advice, and I've probably said this a dozen times, is to be flexible and keep your eyes on the goal. Okay, well, that's it. I hope this scenario has been helpful to you. I won't give you a big conclusion or anything, but I will remind you to check out our course downloads again. And if you have any questions about anything, don't hesitate to reach out. I love hearing from you folks. So, enough studying. Get out there and help your organizations.